episode of the Sharpe Reality. Be sure to follow me on Facebook at Donovan_Sharpe. Like my Facebook page, and if you have any questions, comments, or if you want to tell me I'm a mama's boy, go to the contact tab on the sharpereality.com and give me your thoughts. I did a Twitter poll this past week that pertained to this podcast, and the results weren't surprising. The poll asked if you believe a girl who had told you she'd never been with a black guy after having told you she used to go to hip-hop nights in college, that she likes rap music, and that one of her best friends in high school had a black boyfriend. And as expected, 93% of you don't believe her. 6% of you foolishly entertained the possibility that she might actually be telling the truth. And the 1% that quote-unquote believed her was obviously a woman. That poll seamlessly segues into this week's podcast topic, which is white women who only date black men. This is a polarizing topic, and everybody has different theories as to why this is. And as a black man, I'm going to give my point of view in terms of what I believe motivates these so-called mud sharks. Now, the first thing we'll do is we'll define what a quote-unquote mud shark is. I think that's pretty much a derogatory term for a white girl who dates only black men. I've heard things like mud shark, coal burner. There are a couple other derogatory terms, but I think we all know what we're talking about here. A mud shark is loosely defined as a white woman who exclusively dates black men, or a white woman who dates mostly black men. The first thing that I'm going to talk about before I get into this is how do you spot them? And I think for most men, it's fairly easy, whether you're new to the red pill, whether you're still a blue pill beta, it's relatively easy to spot a white woman who dates only black men. So some of the mud shark tells that are out there. Number one, first and foremost, big hoop earrings. I remember a while back I was messing with this girl, and this was back before I discovered the red pill, when I was just a fledgling player at that point. And she was a pretty girl. She managed to stay skinny even though she had 3 kids. But all of her kids were mixed. They were black. She only fucked black guys. And I remember one afternoon, we're just kind of walking down the street, and she says, white guys never hit on me, and I've never understood why. And I couldn't quite figure it out, but it was the fact that she wore big hoop earrings. If a white guy sees a white girl wearing these huge hoop earrings, among other things, automatically that's a mud shark tell, and he at that point makes a decision in his mind to stay away. In his mind, she's been tainted, and I'll cover that a little bit later on in the podcast. Another mud shark tell is that she has a fake diamond stud in her nose. A lot of them also have tit tattoos. Now, a lot of girls have a lot of tattoos on their tits, their legs, thighs, whatever the case may be, but a favorite tattoo among these white girls who only date black guys are right there on their tits. It's usually like a butterfly or some sort of quote, or some sort of how can I put this? Some sort of profound bullshit that they want you to believe about themselves. A projection play, pretty much. Of course, others include, their ringtones. They have hip hop ringtones. The latest hip hop track. Sometimes their hairstyles can be a bit of a dead giveaway. The list goes on and on. So let's go ahead and jump right into this here. One of the things that I believe motivates white women to date only black men is, of course, low self-esteem. I've said it before in articles past, and this is what I said. White men are at the top of the sexual food chain. They're pretty much every woman's type, of course, including white girls. A lot of times, these white girls have low self-esteem because they were ugly ducklings as kids. They may have been chubby. Whatever the case may be, she has low self-esteem, low sexual self-esteem, because white boys didn't pay her attention, or they didn't pay her enough attention when she was younger. So it causes them to come to the quote-unquote dark side to experience what every girl wants to experience, regardless of race, and that's to be desired. They can certainly do certain things to increase their sexual market value as time goes on. But after sleeping with mostly black guys from a young age, at some point it becomes their preference. It becomes an acquired taste for them, and at that point, white men or men of other color just don't turn them on anymore. Whatever the case may be, again, they want to feel desire. That's every woman's imperative. And from a young age, if they see or determine for themselves that white men aren't going to wife them up, date them, or even fuck them, they have to fulfill this need to be sexually craved somehow. And black males are often viewed as their only option. So the low self-esteem angle is often what's viewed as the reason why white women exclusively date black men. Another reason that we're all aware of is experimentation. I wrote an article a couple of years ago about the pros and cons of game for black men in the West. And one of the pros was the fact that when we're gaming white women specifically, they're looking to experiment. Older white women like to experiment with black men after they've been on the carousel, they've divorced, raped their husband, what have you. They still want to be desired. And we've all heard of the once you go black, you don't go black trope. Girls hear this all the time. They see it. They hear it from their girlfriends, etc., etc. At some point in time, curiosity gets the better of them. They want to see what this is all about. So eventually, they start to experiment a little bit. Some white women date black men exclusively for a short period of time just to see what all the fuss is about. Some of them stay with black men. Some of them sort of dip in and out. But the fact of the matter is that they want to see what all the fuss is about. Women, especially in the West, don't ever want to feel like they're missing out on anything when it comes to sex. They want to see it all, do it all to quote unquote get it out of their system. And the once you go black, you don't go back trope is on their minds constantly because it's fed to them through the media, through social media, their friends, TV shows, what have you. I would submit that if you are dating black men exclusively for an extended period of time and a white woman allows herself to be seen with black men, I would say once you go black, you can't go back. And that again goes to the perceived the perception that they are tainted in some way. And again, I will cover that a little bit later on. I also talked in the article about the fact that we as black men are rarely thought of as long-term relationship material. Of course, if we're professional athletes, celebrities, actors, millionaires, etc., that's the exception to the rule. If our SMV is that high, if we're worth 7-8 figures, white girls don't care what your race is. They're going to try to consolidate on you because they know they can be well taken care of. But at the end of the day, the average white girl doesn't look at the average black guy as husband material. Maybe they'll consider us to be boyfriend material for a little while just to be rebellious or to get attention. But most white girls aren't marrying black men unless they feel like they have no other options. Again, there are exceptions to the rule, my wife being one of them. When I married my ex-wife years ago, she could have been married to a white man easily. I mean, she certainly had the looks to be able to do so. And you look around, you see plenty of white women married to black men who could easily be married to white men. But those are the exceptions to the rule. But 90, I would put the number at 95 to 99% of white women, if they can marry a white man, then that's going to be their preference. So and the thing is this, guys, any black man with game knows and understands that we are sort of a flavor of the week at the very most, as far as white girls are concerned. So when push comes to shove, we know going into this thing, she's probably not going to try to drag us down the aisle, meaning that we both know that this is likely just going to be a short-term fling. Another reason why I believe white women exclusively date black men is for rebellion. Listen, women by nature women unchecked are rebellious by nature. Over the past few decades or so, we all know that the trendy thing to do is to rebel against society's norms. The last decade, however, has been one of those trends seems to be, sticking it to the white man and showing them that, hey, I can date black men too. And again, it's not like they're dating black men exclusively to be rebellious, but one of the welcome side effects, as far as they're concerned, is the fact that they're kind of sticking their middle finger up to the man. Hey, look, you're telling me that I have to date white guys, but look at me, I'm fucking a black guy. Another reason they do this is attention. Look, we all know that women are a little more than overgrown children. For better or worse, they like attention. They like good attention. They like bad attention. They want all eyes to be on them. And I actually mentioned this in one of my articles in the past. Most of the white girls that I've dated are serial hand holders, okay? So the moment we get out of my car or her car, whatever the case may be, and we're walking around in public, they never hesitate to grab my hand and proudly strut around as though they were the queens of the universe. Now, here's the thing. Again, this could be because they genuinely like me. But red pill knowledge tells me that a good number of them like to soak up the attention that comes their way as a result of being with a black guy. Even as a black man, when I see a white girl with a black guy, I still do a double take. Even though it's more quote unquote normal than it used to be, even though it's more commonplace, it's still the minority. And as a white man who frequently dates white women, even I do a double take, not because I'm passing judgment, it's just because it's just something different. I like to look at her and look at him and of course compare sexual market value. I wonder why she's with him, or I wonder why he's with her. We all do these things subconsciously. So again, we know that women are attention whores, and when a white girl is holding a black guy's hand, they're signaling to the world, "Hey, look, I'm dating a black guy." They love that kind of stuff. Another reason that I believe, and this is a big one, that white women date exclusively black men, is because mainstream media, and this is television, movies, etc. Mainstream media consistently paints white men as constant betas. In other words, a lot of white men are portrayed in movies as beta schlubs. They're insignificant, etc., etc. While black men are mostly perceived as static alphas. I pointed this out in my article, The Benefits of Game for Black Men in the West. When as a black man, when I am on a meetup or a date with a white woman, and she starts to shit test me, I've noticed that white women shit test black men as they don't shit test me to see what kind of a man I am. They shit test more for confirmation rather than to see if I am who I perceive myself to be. Black men don't have to prove ourselves as alphas, or we don't have to prove ourselves as alphas, as often as white men have to. Again, when girls are at their office, they're on social media, they see all this stuff, so they automatically assume that most white guys out there just aren't masculine enough. And they assume that most black men are definitely masculine. So again, when they shit test a white guy, they really are trying to figure out, okay, is this guy an alpha or is he not? But with black men, they shit test us, like I said, more as a matter of confirmation. Oh, okay, yeah, he's obviously an alpha. And the shit tests are less complex. They shit test me once or twice and bingo, I'm already in there. Now, the flip side to that is that and I've failed shit tests by white women before. The downside to that is if you fail a shit test as a black man, you're you're beyond done. Because she's, in her mind, she's, okay, I've shit tested this guy, 1, 2, possibly 3 times, and he's failed every time. He is definitely not what I thought he was going to be. And at that point, I just don't have a chance. That's just the way it is. All of that said, most men today aren't as masculine as they need to be. This problem doesn't discriminate because men of all races and nationalities in this part of the world have been affected by we've all been victimized by the effects of feminism. No matter what color we are, we've all been neutered, so to speak, by the scalpel of feminism. White men catch the most heat because A, they're the majority, so there are more to critique, and B, like I said before, white men are at the top of the sexual food chain, which leads to C, constant scrutiny, again, as a natural byproduct of A and B. What should come as no surprise to anyone listening to this is that females they're too stupid to realize that the percentages are all the same across the board with regards to the alpha to beta ratio. Okay, they're constantly saturated by the media, which again portrays black men as these static alphas and most white men as latent betas. You combine that with the fact that most white women in this country have these cushy office jobs and they're pretty much surrounded by and exposed to beta males, or at least men who are afraid to be masculine for fear of the HR department. It's no wonder, most of them, it's no wonder that a lot of them swim to the dark side to experiment a little bit. And again, see what this is all about. Women want to date masculine men. They want to be fucked by masculine men. And the race of that particular male doesn't matter. It matters very little to them. It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Asian, Mexican, whatever the case may be. They want to experience that quote-unquote 5 minutes of alpha, and they'll do anything to do it. And if the media and the culture is telling them, hey, you can't get your 5 minutes of alpha from a white guy, why don't you go get your 5 minutes of alpha from a black guy because they're all alphas? Well, eventually they're going to believe it. Women believe everything they hear and see on television and on social media, especially if they're hearing it from more than one type of source. So one question that I always like to pose, and listen, I have racial discussions with my white friends all the time, is the question, are white women who date black guys, are they off limits or are they contaminated? And look, some of my white friends will flat out tell me yes. Those are some of my closest friends because they don't mind being honest with me, and then most of them tell me no. The reason I ask this question the reason the answer to this question is yes most of the time, it has nothing to do with the color of a man's skin. It has to do with the perceived masculinity. So I'll use myself as an example. If I were to date a white woman, for example, myself, even in my blue pill life, if I were to date a white woman and she starts telling me about her boyfriend, yeah, he was 6'4", he was ripped, he lifts weights, he drives this badass car, he's got a bunch of tattoos, used to fuck the life out of me, had a 20-inch cock, etc., I would automatically, in my mind, I would know, again, this is me as a beta blue pill male. As a beta, I know that I can't compare to that. I know that I can't give her the excitement, the adrenaline rush, the masculinity, the unpredictability, the volatility that her ex-boyfriend gave her. But here's the thing. His race wouldn't matter, not one bit. It wouldn't matter if he was white, black, Asian, Hispanic, whatever the case may be. It wouldn't matter what his race was. In my mind, the only thing that mattered to me was the guy's characteristics. This is why a lot of white men will not go near or touch white women who have dated black men because, and again, this is just what I think. You guys can, feel free to leave comments at the bottom of this particular podcast. And again, I'd really like to hear from you guys about this because this is something that I've always wondered. In my mind, it's because of the characteristics. And listen, I'll submit this to you guys. If as a white man you were to date a white woman and she says, yeah, I dated one black guy, which is probably a lie. But if she showed you a picture of her black ex-boyfriend and he looked like Steve Urkel, I would like to think that, okay, well, look, I mean, she dated some skinny black dude with a high-pitched voice and, you know, he snorted a lot. Obviously, he didn't have the characteristics of that true alpha male. Again, mainstream media, the culture portrays black men as these static alphas. So when white men find out that she dated a black guy, a lot of times he reacts poorly because again, listen, white men and black men alike, we're all affected by the media, whether we want to admit it or not. So in a white man's mind, they're like, man, she dated this black guy. He was probably ripped. He was probably built, athletic. He probably had a 15-inch dick. He probably fucked the life out of her. So in your mind, you're thinking, okay, there's no way I'm going to measure up to that. So I'm not going to go near her. And I believe, and again, I could be wrong, and that's why I'm posing this question to white men and black men alike, what you think. If you think that white women are quote-unquote contaminated and considered to be off limits, if you find out that they ever dated or messed around with black men, I'd love to hear you guys' take on this, because this is something that I've wondered for a while, and I'd be very, very interested to find out what you guys think. Now, at this point, a lot of people are probably saying to themselves, but Donovan, you're black. How can you talk this way about black men? Do you hate yourself, etc., etc.? Listen, guys, make no mistake about the fact that I am a confident man who knows who he is and who he's not, okay? But by the same token, for me to believe that I should be every woman's first choice for long-term partnership is both short-sighted and delusional. Again, you got to be honest with yourself. Yes, it's important for men to approach women as though he's the king of the fucking world and that he's entitled to fuck every woman that he comes across. Yes, it's equally important to know, believe, and walk around like you're God's gift to women. Women adore that. They love overconfidence. But facts are facts, guys. As a black male, again, I know that when any woman sees me, regardless of race, I know that I'm more often than not, I'm viewed as a flavor of the week or just a phase by most women I approach. That doesn't hurt my feelings one bit. Okay, at this point, I'm just playing the hand. That I've been dealt. Sure. Again, there have been a few women in my life I've spent more than a few months with here and there who just wanted nothing more than a roll in the hay or a few weeks just to show me off to her friends, look at my black boyfriend. But again, as a man with red pill awareness, I'm aware that both the sexual market value and the feminine imperative doesn't give a shit about what it should offer me as a man, okay? And it doesn't care what's fair and what's not. So again, if you're short, if you're bald, if you're ugly, and even if you're black, you have to have more game. You have to have more game than the average man, okay? Because if you don't, females aren't going to fawn over you. This isn't a slight on men who have, sexual market deficiencies like I do, the fact that I'm black, or short men or balding men, and it's not to imply that I'm not a high-value male, but the strongest part of a man's overall game is knowing his deficiencies in the sexual market value, and working to overcome them. Again, we're men. We have to reach down to our Y chromosome and say, okay, I'm short, or I'm balding, or I'm black, or I'm Mexican, so I need to do things to increase my value so that I can start to sleep with more women or sleep with more white women. Now, at the end of the day, are there white girls out there who date men of all races, including black men? Sure. Okay, we all know that. Are there high SMV women who date black men because they happen to be their type? Of course, okay? There are plenty of well-adjusted, confident, high-value women who date black guys for no other reason but that some black men turn them on, and those black men have solid game. Happens all the time. But the sexual imperative of a female is to consolidate on the highest value male she can find. women who consistently punch what's perceived to be below their collective weight by dating only men who are not considered to be valuable long-term partners or husbands according to cultural standards, there again, any woman that does that, there has to be some sort of inherent flaw. Whether it exists physically, mentally, and emotionally. And again, it's not to say that, hey, if you're a white woman and you date me, there's something wrong with you. But again, I'm under no illusion that I am at the top of the sexual food chain. Yes, I'm a tall, good-looking guy. Yes, I'm in great shape. Yes, I mean, I make a great living for myself. But all things being equal, I know that white women are going to prefer white men. That's just all there is to it. Most of the time, it's a combination of certain things when it comes to the factors playing into the role of a woman, of a white woman specifically wanting to date black men exclusively. Whether it's occasionally or exclusively. So I think that it's very important for white men and black men alike to just be honest with themselves and say, hey, look, here are my sexual market value deficiencies, and here is what I need to do to overcome them. If you're a white guy and you're skinny and out of shape, get big. Or don't get big. Make sure that you're in good shape. Make sure you're in better shape than the average man. And as a black man, trying to game or date white women, you have to make sure that your game is tight. You have to make sure you definitely don't fail those shit tests. That's the game, guys. That's how it works. You have to understand that as a black man, women prefer white men, all things being equal. So that's my take on the reasons that I believe, some white women exclusively date black men. I'm certainly not hating on myself. I certainly don't have low self-esteem. Anyone who knows me knows that is definitely not the case. But that's my take. Again, I would be very, very interested to find out what you guys think are the reasons. And I love having these discussions and reading comments on issues of race and dating, because there are a lot of different theories out there. And listen, I've said in my articles before on Return of Kings is I learned from you guys just as much as you guys learned from me. I mean, I used to not read the comments on my articles too much, but the more I read them, the more I learn, hey, you know what? This guy has a pretty solid point of view. And at the end of the day, guys, we're all on the same side. We're all men. And if we can help each other out, let's definitely do that. Time for a little bit of Q&A here. My first question comes from Alan. It says, hey, Donovan, longtime fan of your work. I was really intrigued about the modern-day Batcave you talked about in your first installment of your villain series back in the day. I'm seriously thinking about maybe doing one myself, but I'm not sure where to start. I'm also concerned about insulation, outfitting, etc. Any information you could give me would be much appreciated. Thanks for your question, Alan. No, I don't live there anymore because I've relocated since then. But for those of you who aren't familiar with what Alan's talking about, I bought a standalone, it was about a 1,700 square foot warehouse a few years back in a warehouse district of the town that I used to live in. And it took me a little over a year to make it livable. I bought secondhand appliances and built sort of a makeshift kitchen. I outfitted the place with all of the applicable outlets. I had a squat rack, a gun safe. It had a roll-up door, which allowed me to park my vehicle inside of the warehouse, which was really cool. Now, I ended up having to sell it a few months back before I relocated, but it was a cool setup, and I do miss it a lot. To answer your question, Alan, it's not hard to find these places at all. You can go on Craigslist, or what I recommend, just drive around in a warehouse district, and that's exactly how I found mine. You just drive around, you look for signs, and you contact the realtor or the seller, what have you. I got a great deal on mine because it needed a lot of work. I spent a solid month cleaning it out and sanitizing it to make it livable. I would say the most important element is insulation. After you clean that place up, before you do anything, definitely make sure that it's insulated. You want it to be cool in the summertime and warm in the wintertime. I don't know anything about insulation, so I had to hire a contractor to do mine, and he did a great job, so it was literally weatherproof. And look, I could talk about this for hours, but those things are where you need to start. And if you need more information, Alan, definitely hit me on my website, on my contact page, and we can certainly continue this conversation. My next question comes from Dan the Man. He says, "Hey man, longtime reader of yours. Love your articles on ROK. I have a couple of questions regarding your workout/diet. Do you drink protein shakes? If so, how many per day? And also, do you have visible abs with this routine? Thanks for these podcasts. Great work. Keep them coming." Yeah, definitely thanks for the love, Dan. I do drink protein shakes when I'm doing my winter bulking to up the calories, and of course to build more solid muscle. I have more visible abs when I'm in the cutting phase. That's when I really crank up the cardio. I've mentioned in past podcasts that this season I've laid down a little over 4,000 miles on my bike, and that's from late in the winter to mid-fall, and the cycling season is about to end here. But yeah, I do drink protein shakes, but I do not drink them year-round. Protein shakes certainly have their advantages. And listen, some guys swear by protein shakes. Some guys will not lift without their protein shake, or some guys won't. Their post-workout meal always includes a protein shake. I do protein shakes, but I do them for months at a time, just depending upon where I am in my fitness. So you certainly won't hurt yourself with protein shakes. But me, I'm a big time cardio guy. I'm fortunate. I happen to be genetically predisposed to muscle growth, so I don't really need protein shakes as much, as the average man with the average build. So that concludes this episode of the Sharpe Reality. Thank you, Dan, for your question, and of course, thank you, Alan, for your questions. If you guys, again, if you want to continue these conversations, definitely hit me on my Facebook page, hit me on Twitter @Donovan_Sharpe, or you can visit my website, thesharpereality.com, hit the contact tab, and drop your thoughts to me. Also, you can certainly read all of my articles on Return of Kings. Be sure to go to returnofkings.com and check out what I've got to say there. Next week, I'm going to talk about the existence of God from a red pill point of view. This is a topic that I have really thought about and discussed with a lot of different people over the past few months, and I have some interesting observations as far as religion and the existence of a deity or a God is concerned. And again, this is one of those topics that I want to get some feedback from you guys on. So definitely stay tuned for that podcast next Tuesday. Thanks for listening, guys, and I will talk to you next Tuesday on the Sharpe Reality.